Folks. Welcome to a webinar. We're just waiting for a couple of minutes for the other participants to join. Normally, there's a lot of confusion about the UTC versus local time. So we're just waiting for a few more applicants who wanted to partake in the webinar to join, and then we'll start in about, I'd say, a couple of minutes. Thanks for your patience. All right, everybody, how you guys doing? My name is Russ Sherwood. I'm a lead consultant for Aerocadet. I'm also an airline captain here in the United States on the Airbus fleet. And so part of my important job is provide consulting for Aerocadet students and make sure that everybody is getting consultation, everything they need to know about the flight training programs, and make sure the flight training programs that we offer them meet their objectives. One of the most popular objectives is, of course, employment with Middle Eastern airlines, specifically Emirates. So I'd say somewhere around 70% of students that we ask, where exactly would you like to work after you complete your training, your internship, and you qualified for airline employment, I'd say about 70-75% say Emirates. So we decided to conduct a little webinar so everybody is on the same page. We will record it. Hopefully that's okay with everybody, so we can refer future questions, future applicants to this webinar recording to make sure that they can just kind of go through that and go to Q&A. So I'm sure we'll have a Q&A session where a lot of you will be asking questions about things that might interest you, how to overcome different obstacles of becoming an Emirates pilot and stuff like that. First of all, I personally worked in Southeast Asia for about 6 years. I spent a couple of years working in China. I spent about 3 years in Indonesia, and I spent about a year in Malaysia and Singapore. And so a lot of colleagues I worked with ended up in Emirates. A lot of my colleagues were from Australia, some were from India, from obviously Indonesia and stuff like that. And so many of them ended up in Emirates. So I'm in constant contact, almost a daily basis via WhatsApp, via emails and stuff like that with my colleagues. We have a very good understanding exactly what it takes to become Emirates pilots. We have some graduates that targeted Emirates, ended up in Emirates after completion of internship and the initial experience building as airline pilots in Canada. So, we would like to talk about that. Now, we're sharing here a screen. We have Aerocadet has a big blog section here. And if you go to aerocadet.com /blog, you'll see a whole bunch of articles. And so you can also get there through going through Academy and then articles and reviews. Click on that, and it will take you to our main blog page. The main blog page has a lot of information. The recent article is written specifically about how to become an Emirates pilot. So we're going to use that as a template to talk about what it takes to become an Emirates pilot, what exactly requirements they have to meet, what are the minimum requirements, what are the actual desirable requirements for admission, and why some people who meet the minimal requirements never get a call, and why some people do. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about exactly what they want in an airline pilot, how much they're paying, what are the sort of benefits they're offering, etc., etc. All right, everybody can hear me okay? If somebody wants to ask questions in the meantime while we talk, you can just ask him in the chat window. So this is the chat window. Right here, you probably got a message from a chat window. And so we can definitely answer them. But what we prefer to do is have a little presentation about exactly what it takes to become an airline pilot with Emirates, and then we'll conduct a short Q&A where we'll be able to address your questions in a more substantial, more structured format. Okay. All right. So you can all navigate to that page, or in the meantime, just let us navigate. It will show you exactly what's happening. And so working for Emirates is always a very big step. It's a career goal for a lot of pilots. Why is it a career goal? Because Emirates is a company that operates wide-body aircraft. They fly them all over the world. They offer tremendous benefits, not just in terms of salary, but in terms of where you live, accommodation. They offer chauffeur services for you when you're about to go to work. So they provide you a car. Will take you to the head office. At the head office, you would normally go through briefing with your colleagues and with the flight attendants as well, and you'll even go through immigration because you're leaving UAE and fly, let's say, for example, to United States or Australia or any other destination that the airline has. The airline operates a lot of brand new aircraft. They're actually really famous for ordering new aircraft. They also have a lot of used aircraft. You've probably been around for 7, 8, even 10 years, like some of the Boeing 777s. But they also have A380s. They order A350s and basically operate at the edge of the new aircraft, which is obviously always fantastic for a lot of pilots. That's what pilots want to fly, and that's how they want to operate. Another important thing that Emirates offers is that they pay for an extremely high level of education for the kids, for the families of the pilots. So the children attend boarding schools or English schools or American schools in UAE while living in Dubai. Something normally costs maybe $10,000, $15,000 a year. Emirates pays for that. So it's one of the great benefits. And of course, probably the most important benefits is insurance for the loss of license. So all the pilots have a special insurance in case they lose their medical, in case something happens to the medical and they're unable to fly anymore. Their salaries are insured by a company for which the airline's paying. So I'm not sure what exactly it is. It depends on their grade, but it's anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 million dollars. So if they lose the medical, they'll automatically become millionaires. And of course, the salary that they receive is already very substantial. So if you think about, you're provided with a lot of benefits. You don't pay taxes, and captains make anywhere between $22,000 to $28,000 per month. All that money is tax-free and could be automatically invested into, market economy, into stocks, into bonds, and things like that. They don't have managers. They don't have financing managers that manage their money because they have so much money. So most of these captains already have multi-million-dollar fortune sitting somewhere invested. And the first officers who are not captains yet, waiting to be upgraded, normally get upgraded after 5 to 6 years of flying as first officers, obviously get paid approximately half of that. So starting salary for a first officer in Emirates would be anywhere from $10, $11, sometimes $12,000 to perhaps anywhere between $15,000 to $16,000. So it really depends on how much they work and roster. Another important thing that we'll talk about is schedule. So what sort of schedule they're flying, and is it hard schedule? Is it easy schedule? What exactly they're doing? So airlines like Emirates, for example, of course, fly schedules which are most of the time are international schedules. A lot of the schedules, a lot of the segments of the schedules are red-eye schedule. And red-eye schedule meaning that when the flight is departing after midnight or arrives after 2 a.m., right? That's so the international concept of red-eye schedule. So these guys operate a lot of red-eye schedules because, again, the flights are mostly international. The flights last anywhere between 8 to 16 hours. and of course, they operate as augmented crews, which means that the pilots normally fly for 4 hours and then they go and they rest in their special bunk beds. And then they, rest for normally 4 hours and then come back to the cockpit. So they'll rotate every 4 hours approximately. Now, with that in mind, an important thing is, there's a lot of preferences, right? Some people want to, some people want to fly to the United States. Some people don't want to work on the weekends. Most people don't want to work as many red eyes as the airline offers. So who gets what schedule, right? And so in the United States, for example, with the union system, the guys that spend most time with the airline, the guys that have most seniority get the best schedule. In Emirates, the system is a little bit more fair. Okay, the way it works in Emirates is that it basically allows pilots to bid in preference A, B, C, and D. And so that preference rotates every 4 months. And so the preference A means that they get the best schedule they can possibly request. And so they get sort of preferred schedule. They get really nice layovers. They get to fly perhaps during the weekdays and not on the weekends, and just better trips. B is slightly less, that C is less, and D is normally stuff that nobody wants to fly. So every 4 months, you'll have a rotation which allow you to fly really great trips, and also rotation will allow you to fly trips that nobody else wants to fly. So it's a very fair system. Again, in a lot of airlines like US Airlines, the system is that if you haven't spent much time with the company for the first maybe 5-6 years, you're just going to be flying bad trips. Okay, where at Emirates it's a more fair system. Well, anyways, let's just go through that, and we use that sort of article that I wrote a few days ago as a template, so we can go through sort of salary breakdown here and see exactly what's happening. So the salary that we have here between $6,000 to $8,000 for first officer, it's just the basic salary. Remember that you have per diem, you have housing allowances and stuff like that. So when everything comes together, first officers normally end up at about $12,000 per month. And again, when it comes to captains, when captain's basic salary, let's say between 11 to 16, so let's say $15,000 after all the additions like housing allowance, like per diem allowances and stuff like that. Again, it comes to about $23,000, $25,000 a month. And remember, that's tax-free. So if you, for example, work an example for U.S. airline captain like myself, I work in the United States, and let's say I make around 25, 26, sometimes $27,000 a month, I'm still liable to pay taxes just of 35% on that. Okay. These guys don't pay taxes. So even though they make just a little bit less money, they actually get to keep more money because of the taxation. Also, if my kids go to a private school, and most airline captains here in the U.S. send their kids to private schools. The private schools cost around $10,000 to $15,000 a year. Again, Emirates pays for that. So all in all, if you work for Emirates, you actually end up making more money, and basically retire with probably about anywhere between, I'd say, $8 to $10 million in total earnings. I'm not saying that that's the money you're going to keep for retirement, because that's too much money to keep for retirement. But you're probably going to keep for retirement a couple of million, and that's normally enough, especially depending on where you're from. So the total earnings, as I said, first officer will earn it would be between 120 and 150,000 US dollars annually. We're captain between 180 and $250,000 annually. And that's an important part here about tax-free. There's no taxation. It's already pre-taxed to whatever level the Emirates requires, so there's no further taxation. The only time that pilots have to worry about taxation is where their countries require additional taxes to be paid to their countries. And a good example is the United States. So if I live in the United States if I live in UAE and I'm a United States citizen and I work for Emirates, I get a break on taxes only for the first $150,000. So if I'm a first officer, I don't have to pay taxes in the United States. If I'm a captain, I made $250,000, and the first $150,000 are tax-free because I'm an expat. I live in the United States. The other $100,000 are taxable. And it doesn't apply to a lot of other countries. Like, for example, I'm also a UK citizen, United Kingdom, and in UK, I don't have to pay taxes at all, right? So it really depends on the tax structure of your own country. But majority of pilots, a lot of pilots who work for Emirates are from UK, from Australia. Obviously, there's a lot of them from Southeast Asia, like India, some of them from Africa. And so most of those countries don't have sort of double taxation system like they have in the United States. So those guys are completely tax-free and obviously making and saving up a lot of money. Okay, well, so how to get hired. Let's first of all talk about how to acquire qualifications to be hired and what exactly they need. Now, you guys can always go to the Emirates website and type in the application for a pilot or application requirements for a pilot. Emirates always publishes those requirements. They want to make sure that people are up to date all the time, exactly what they need, whether they're hiring or not. And so Emirates are hiring right now. They stopped hiring only for a brief period of time during the COVID. And COVID, unfortunately, was a turbulent time. A lot of pilots were let go, and they were let go because of different factors that normally would not be sufficient for a pilot to let go in the US, for example, and Canada. And so those factors could have been the amount of sick calls the pilot made the previous year. It could have been factors that the pilot maybe applied for upgrade and maybe didn't make through upgrade. So there's a lot of factors that basically somewhat unusual, but they're performance based and they're reliability based. And so reliability is obviously related to sick calls. Now, if you work for an airline which is unionized, like for example, all the airlines in the United States and Canada are unionized, those airlines would not allow a pilot to be fired because of the sick call, right? Because we want to make sure the pilot's extremely safe when they fly, so they show up to work only when they're 100%. But in some other countries, in developing countries, that's not the case. So we have to make sure that we bear this in mind. And when you guys eventually come to the point that you're ready to get employment with Emirates, and maybe you're flying right now for an airline in Canada, perhaps it's something that might bother you to decide what is it you want to do. Do you want to have more insurance for the job insurance, and make sure that you're unionized, okay, but make somewhat less money, or you want to have less security for the job, you're not unionized, but make more money and have more benefits. Okay, so it's a decision that a lot of pilots have to make. Anyways, what exactly do they need? First of all, before we start applying, right, the application process here, we want to make sure that we have the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements is an ICAO ATPL. Okay, so it's airline transfer pilot license, not a CPL, not a commercial pilot license. They want the applicants to have at least 2,000 hours of jet time, yeah, and 2,500 hours of total flight time, right? So those are the minimum requirements. Most pilots who apply for those positions have a few thousand hours of total flight time and just about 2,000 hours of jet time. Now, it can be just any jet time. The jet time has to be on an airplane which has MTOW, the maximum takeoff weight, over 30 tons. Okay, so if you look up aircraft, which are normally operated by a lot of airlines, and you look up their maximum takeoff weight, you'll see that those aircraft that normally start, will fit this requirement are CRJ 700 or ERJ 170. Okay, and those are the airplanes that are operated by a lot of airlines in the United States and Canada. And those are the starter airplanes. So normally, if you come from flight school environment, you have a full ATPL, you're ready to start your employment for an airline in Canada or United States, you normally start flying these type of aircraft, the CRJ 700, 900, or ERJ 170. A lot of airlines 10 years ago operated light aircraft like CRJ 200 or ERJ 145. They no longer operate them because they're just extremely inefficient per seat, per mile. So those airlines those aircraft are gone now. So why are we saying this? Because if you go to any of our integrated programs, if you go to integrated programs for Aerocadet, so just go to website aerocadet.com, click on programs, and you'll see that we have two main programs that most sort of students take, and that's the one in Canada for international students, and we also have a similar program for Indian students. I'll say about 70% of our students from India, so we have specific programs outlined that specifically designed and optimized for Indian students. Those programs take students to Canada. They allow them to complete their flight training in Canada. They afford up to 3 years of internship in Canada as commercial pilots, as flight instructors. And after that, they can apply for PR. So after 2 years, they're eligible to apply for permanent residency in Canada. They apply for PR. They normally get approved for PR. And with the PR, after 2 years of internship, they normally have about 1,500 hours at least. They get a full ATPL, and then they're eligible to apply for airline employment in Canada, right? So this is why we keep talking about Canada and the airplanes. They operate there in regional airlines. Now, this airline employment is not going to be with Air Canada. It's going to be one of the Air Canada subsidiaries, like Jazz Aviation, for example, or it could be with ULCC airline in Canada, like WestJet, right? So you're not going to get from piston time to immediately sort of flying international mainline Air Canada routes. That's not going to happen. What normally happens is you fly for a regional airline. And that regional airline is enough to meet the qualifications that you need for the Emirates admission requirements. So again, admission requirements for Emirates is about 2,500 hours of total flight time, 2,000 hours on the jet. And you don't have to be a captain on a jet. You can be a first officer, which is how I normally fly in airlines, and full ATPL. Now, the ATPL is Airline Transfer Pilot License. It has to be full unrestricted. It cannot be frozen. It cannot be restricted. It has to be unrestricted. And to get a full unrestricted ATPL in North America, in in US or Canada, you need 1,500 hours of total flight time. So normally to get that, again, you'll be able to apply for that after completion of 2 or 3 years of internship. And our programs afford internship in Canada and the United States as well. So you'll be able to reach those requirements very easily. Now, what about United States? Can you get those qualifications in the United States? Some of them, yes. Some of them you will not be able to get. For example, a full ATPL, yes, not a problem, right? Because programs in the United States have an integration with internship programs. So you have up to 2 years of internship. So you finish your flight training, then you have about 8 to 9 months of CPT, which is curriculum practical training. That's where you work as a flight instructor. And then after that, you have another 12 months of OPT, which is optional practical training. And that's when you work as either a flight instructor, or you have an option to get employment anywhere in the United States as a commercial pilot and perhaps fly as a first officer in a turboprop aircraft. Okay, so that option is available. However, once you complete those internships, there isn't a direct pathway to get a permanent residency in the United States, unlike Canada. So in Canada, you'll be able to apply for PR after 2 years of internship. You're eligible to do so. It's a part of the Canadian experience class program. So if you have X amount of experience working in Canada, in this case, at least a year of study and 2 years of internship, you're eligible to become a permanent resident in Canada. And we actually have an article in the same blog section that specifically talks about what qualifications you need. And it's a point-based system. So again, most graduates qualify for that, and they get through that Canadian experience class qualifications without a problem. Now, the United States doesn't have it. The United States has a program which is somewhat similar, but it's different. It's called EB-1 visa program. And so our students that study in the United States can apply for EB-1 visa program and try to get the PR, the permanent residency, that way. Now, the EB-1 visa program is basically, it's also known as exceptional ability visa. And you have to prove to the US government when you apply for the visa that you are an exceptional pilot. You have to provide up to 10 reference letters from the instructors, from mentors, from the school director, from us as well. And if we can, we certainly do that. That you've been an exceptional pilot, you haven't failed any check rides, you helped other students to get through training as well. You wrote articles to help students, you contributed to the aviation knowledge and stuff like that. So we have, again, on our blog page right here, we have an article which specifically talks about EB-1 and suggestions, advices on how to get EB-1 approval. The approval rate is still very low. I would say somewhere between 5 to 7%, right? Where approval rate for permanent residency in Canada, once you qualify, is very high, more than 90%. So this is why we talk about the Canadian training pathway as a better sort of suggested, as a more advisable pathway if you're targeting Emirates, right? Because Emirates requires jet time, and you most likely will not be able to get jet time if you don't qualify for EB-1 visa in the United States. Of course, it's not the only route. We had students that came over and simply, got married. So you spend a lot of time in the United States. You spend about 3 years in the U.S. So some of them got married completely legitimately. 3 years enough time to sort of do some serious dating there. You're not at the flight school every day. You're at the flight school maybe 3-4 days a week. You definitely have weekends to yourself. So a lot of students do that. But of course, we cannot say this is the preferred way to do that. So, for us, from our point of view, it's up to you to decide what you want to do. We just want to make sure that you advise you on the normal approved, I want to say mainstream options of how to get permanent residency. If you do get permanent residency in the United States, getting jet time is just as easy as in Canada. You simply apply for employment with any of the regional airlines, and you probably get a job offer within 2 or 3 days. It's extremely easy. And then you start a study program. Just like in Canada, the type ratings are always free. in the United States. There's no charge. It doesn't matter what aircraft you're flying. It's always offered free of charge. And the initial training normally takes about 6 to 8 weeks. After that, you start working and flying, and you're probably going to fly anywhere between 80 to 90 hours per month. So building jet time that way for the purpose of employment with Emirates is a quick process. It shouldn't take more than a couple of years. All right, moving on to application process. So let's say you went through one of our Aerocadet programs. You finished your internship. You got a job with a regional airline. You went through 2 years of employment as a regional airline. And by the way, of course, you're getting paid, right? Don't forget, you're still getting paid for all of that. In Canada or United States, normally a regional airline pilot would probably get paid around $80,000 a year. So the first couple of years, you're going to get paid $80 to $90,000. It's a fairly good amount of money. If you remember, the average salary, the average income in the United States is approximately $50,000. They're already making 1.5 times the average, which means that you can allow yourself to live very comfortably and have a good time. And that's while you're building time to become an Emirates pilot. So, and in Canada, the earnings would probably be just a little less, maybe 10 to 15% less. And it's mostly because the Canadian dollar. So Canadian dollar is weaker comparing to the US dollar. The Canadian pilots get paid the same amount of money in Canadian dollars as US pilots get paid in US dollars. So quantitatively, it's the same amount, but because it's a weaker currency, things are slightly more expensive in Canada. And so the standard of living will be just a little bit less than, for example, in the US. But again, it depends where you're living in the US, right? If you live in California, everything's expensive. If you live in Florida, for example, Texas, things are a lot cheaper. Okay, let's have a look. So now let's go through the application process. You have applied. You met the requirements. You've applied. You filled out the application form. You submitted your documents. Obviously, your documents are your license. Your reference letters are very important. Your logbook. You submitted all that stuff. You went through initial screening. So normally, what happens is that they would call you and say, "Hey, we saw your application. It sounds like you're a great candidate. You meet all our requirements. And most importantly, you're one of the type of candidates we're looking for." Now, what exactly they're looking for? Let's say, as I said in the beginning of this, some pilots get a phone call from Emirates, and some pilots don't get a phone call from Emirates, and they all meet the requirements. Well, what's the difference? What's the reason, right? Well, you have to understand what is it that they want. The Emirates want to increase safety in their airline, and they want to make sure that the practices of safety, the practices of sort of safety-minded operation are brought into Emirates from the pilot perspective. So they don't want to hire pilots who only have experience working in countries with a high accident rate, right? So, for example, let's take a country with high rate of accidents. Indonesia. Indonesia is a very good example. They have high accident rate compared to other countries. If you just worked in Indonesia, if you just did your flight training in Indonesia, if you just flew your aircraft in Indonesia, most likely you're not going to get hired, even if you meet the standards. Why? Because you only did your training there, right? It's very easy to get through training there, especially if you pay extra to the instructor or to the examiner, right? So you can get actually through a lot of stuff through bribery, right? I know that because I used to be a chief flight instructor in Indonesia, and we were the only school that disallowed that. It was a school full of Westerners who just would not allow anything but a Western mentality to get through. But a lot of other schools would accept bribes from students, and people would just get the licenses, not because they deserve them, because they earned them, but because they just paid extra. Okay, so this sort of practice is is not okay. And of course, Emirates does not want to hire pilots from that sort of background. Okay. If they worked as airline pilots, they probably haven't complied with safety standards, the Western safety standards. So if they work as an airline pilot in Indonesia or maybe somewhere else like China, they haven't complied with minimum safety standards. And so they don't want those kind of pilots. They don't want pilots that are going to bring bad habits, right? What they do really want is they want international pilots from all kinds of backgrounds, but the ones that did their flight training in a Western mentality country. So it could be, of course, US, Canada. It could be Australia as well. Australia is not technically a Western country, but it has Western mentality, Western culture. So that could be a good example of what they're looking for. And they worked in those countries. They absorbed the mentality, they absorbed the culture of the airlines and how they do things and what to do and what not to do. So this is an important part. This is the kind of guys that they're looking for. Okay. So again, if you have 2 years of experience working for an airline in Canada, which has a very, very high safety rating, and you have the required flight time and jet time, and you're competing with a guy who maybe has just the same qualifications but only from India, you're going to get the call and not him. Okay, so it's important to understand what pathway will take you into the airline like Emirates and what exactly they're looking for and what is it that they prefer, not just require, not the minimum requirements, but what is it that they prefer. Okay, so initial screening, we talked about that. Assessment day. Now the assessment is difficult in Emirates, and you have to prepare for it. Okay, and I'll show you how to prepare for assessments, but assessments are not easy. If you just show up to assessment day normally contains the pilot aptitude testing. It contains certain exercise, group exercise. Like, for example, they're going to give you a problem, a navigational problem, and you all will have to work with other guys. They're going to take the assessment group divided into several parts, and you have to work with maybe 3 or 4 guys to decide how to solve a certain navigation problem or a certain problem with maybe technical difficulties problem, stuff like that, right? I'll give you an example. For example, you've been filed to fly to Orlando International, but Orlando International, unfortunately, is having weather issues due to hurricane. The crosswind component is exceeded for a Boeing 777. Can you land on this runway? And if you cannot land, of course you shouldn't if the components exceeded, where else can you go? They want you to calculate exactly how much time it will take you to divert. They want you to calculate how much gas it will take you to divert. And once you divert it there, will you be able to get serviced? Will the passengers be able to proceed to their destination? Stuff like that. So those are important things that you'll have to discuss during the exercises. While you're discussing those things, you'll be observed by the HR professionals. Okay, so they want to see how much you participate in those discussions, what kind of knowledge you're contributing, what sort of opinions, how safe are those opinions. You have to basically show yourself from the best point. And so those things, you can actually prepare for those things. Fortunately, there's a lot of software out there which will allow you to get ready for that. I'll show you a couple of things. If you go to our website, aerocadet.com, scroll all the way down, there is a link there which has a free study library. Okay, and that free study library gives you free study materials to prepare for licensing with FAA and TCCA, which is Canada. But also it has a section there which allow you to prepare for assessment day with Emirates. Okay, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. It probably costs $60 or $70. You don't pay it to us; you pay it to companies that actually do that, and you'll be able to go through exactly what is it that they want from you during the assessment. You go through the group exercises and stuff like that. You won't be able to partake it as a group, but you'll understand exactly what they want and what the exercise will be like. Okay. Another important psychometric test will be a Raven test. Raven test is a Raven progressive matrices. And so you'll be given certain graphic matrices, which you'll be required to recognize what continuation or how they resolve themselves. And again, when you practice, if you do enough practice and practice for 2 or 3 days, you'll actually increase your performance by a factor of 300%. Okay, so if you just show up there without practice, you're probably going to fail. Make sure you practice. Okay, and again, practice is available. It's not a problem. And finally, a simulator assessment. Now, a simulator assessment is normally done in a Boeing 777 simulator, and you might be asking yourself, how am I going to pass a simulator assessment in a Boeing 777 if I've never flown a Boeing 777? I've only flown, for example, a regional airline in the United States or Canada. Well, that's a great question, and this is the reason why they offer you an assessment in this airplane. They want you to see how quickly you can adapt to this airplane and how quickly and how well you can execute the profile. So the profile is normally a flight that they give you. They normally give you a takeoff from, for example, Dubai Airport. You have to climb to a certain altitude in a certain direction. It's going to be all raw data without the autopilot. They'll give you certain turns to do. They'll ask you to speed up, slow down, do whatever you have to do that. And then they'll ask you to fly an ILS approach, normal raw data, into Dubai. And somewhere around 200 or 300 feet above the ground, you'll have some sort of fire. You'll normally have an engine fire or some other problem. Normally, you'd lose an engine. And then you'd be expected to go around, a single engine go around, and then work the problem with the captain. Obviously, you will fly with Emirates captain, who'll be helping you to work the problem. But you're the one who's going to be controlling the aircraft. And once you work the problem, once you secure the engine, once you shut down the fire, secure the engine, you'll be expected to turn around and do the approach again, single engine approach. Okay, and they'll be obviously monitoring how you're going to do that, et cetera, et cetera. So why such a hard sort of assessment? The reason for that is because they want to see how you adapt to those circumstances, and it's very difficult to pass. So what do people do in order to, quote unquote, cheat and pass it rather than fail it? Well, there's a lot of 777 simulators available all over the world. We normally recommend that our students or colleagues who go in for this assessment, they contact local 777 simulator operation, okay, and they sign up for 2 hours of practice. And those 2 hours of practice will make a huge difference because you'll know exactly what's going to happen. Now, most of the 777 operators, especially in the United States, like our partners in Miami, the Pan Am Academy, they actually have the profiles from Emirates. So they know exactly what to fly. And in a couple of hours, they'll be able to train you to execute that flight very, very well. If you need more than 2 hours, you can sign up for extra time. It does cost money. It will cost you approximately $1,000 per hour. But if working for Emirates is your ultimate goal, your ultimate career goal, then it's definitely a good investment. So I'll definitely recommend doing that rather than risking showing up to the assessment and failing it. All right. So again, all those things are important. Now, so psychometric testing, we already discussed that. That's going to be your Raven mattresses. It's going to be also, there's also going to be a technical interview. The technical interview is normally a panel interview with other captains. So you're going to show up into a room. It will be 5 or 6 captains sitting there, and they're, one of their primary duties is to obviously fly an airplane. So they fly every day. But they also signed up to interview the new applicants, and so they'll be asking you questions. For example, tell me about the time that you had to declare an emergency, right? And so or maybe work a problem in an aircraft. And so if you have a couple of years of experience flying in a regional airline, most likely you had to deal with something like that. So, just make sure that you have those stories ready, and the fun stories, the exciting stories. And the important part of the stories is how you executed them and what you learned from them, right? Because in the end of the day, you're a good pilot because you learn from your mistake. You're a better pilot if you learn from someone else's mistakes. So, if you have someone else's stories to tell, you can tell stories of your friend, something happened to your friend, and you can also say that, I've learned from this, and that. They want to hear exactly where you learned from that and how you're going to move forward dealing with this kind of situations. Technical interviews will also be about the nature of flying. It will be about aerodynamics. It will be about weather. That's really important to understand the weather, and things like that. So again, when you go for the prep through our website, and we always send the links to those prep softwares to our graduates who are ready to move on and start sort of applying for Emirates. You'll be able to go through exactly what sort of questions to be prepared for. Okay, so those softwares will prepare you for that. Okay, unfortunately, there's a lot of students, there's a lot of pilots that go for those assessments without prep, and a lot of them fail them. So don't be one of those guys, and make sure you prepare. Once you prepare, your chance of passing it will increase hundreds of percent. It'll be a lot easier than if you go without preparation. The final interview. So the final interview is normally with just the HR reps. They would normally tell you, okay, listen, you did really well on your assessments. You did well on your exercise. We loved how you performed on simulator. We're prepared to offer you employment. We want to make sure that you are okay with certain terms and conditions, and it would be perhaps living in Dubai. It would be the whole bunch of sort of plethora of terms and conditions you have to agree on. And that's going to be a final interview, and normally just a review with an HR professional, not a captain. Medical examination. So obviously you have to get a medical for Emirates. Now, it has to be noted that Emirates per se has a slightly higher medical standard than the minimal requirement for Emirates. So just because you qualify for Emirates Medical, sometimes you may not be able to get the medical for Emirates Airlines. Okay, and so I've heard of situations. I've heard a couple of guys that were flying for Emirates, and then at some point they were unable to meet the medical standards anymore, and they were offered two options. One is to sort of take the medical, the loss of license insurance, okay, and the other one is to downgrade to fly with Fly Dubai, which is the ULCC for Emirates. And one of them took the retirement option and basically stopped flying for Emirates. He actually went flying somewhere else, because just because you can't get medical for Emirates doesn't mean that you're done. And the other guy downgraded into a captain position with Fly Dubai. So downgraded from 777 to 737. But it's quite rare. Most of the time, medical examination is not a problem. So if you just maintain a healthy lifestyle, you should be okay. So you got to go through medical examination after you pass all the standards. And of course, why is it after the interview process? Because the medical examination costs money, and in this case, Emirates will pay for it. Okay, so they don't want to start paying left, right, and center, for people to go through medical, but they can't even finish the admission process. So it's very important that they understand why it's happening. Background checks. What exactly is background check? The background check, they want to make sure that whatever you declared, whatever you have in your logbook is accurate, right? Is it possible to lie in the logbook? Of course. This is the what we call the honor system, right? And people, pilots expect to log exactly the correct flight time in the logbook. So, they basically want to make sure that this is the correct thing. So they're probably going to call your airline. Are they going to contact your airline? They want to make sure that you actually have flown those aircraft. They might contact your flight school. They want to make sure they have flown this aircraft. So, we just want to make sure you guys don't cheat in the logbook, because all that stuff will be verifiable, and of course they will have to go through the verification process of your license, and so that normally takes a couple of weeks. the contract offer, you'll sign the contract, and then you join the training. Okay, so I'll give you the class date, you join the training with everyone else. So that's the process. And again, the next thing here, which flight training programs optimal? We have the United States here, which talks about the entire flight training in the United States could be done, but there's no jet time unless you get EB1 visa or you simply get married and qualify for green card. And we're talking about Canada here, which does offer jet time because it's a lot easier to get the Canadian experience class, which is permanent residency. So that's the whole article. If you guys want to refer to that, again, you're welcome to do so. Just go to aerocadet.com and then click on reviews. So Academy, articles and reviews is going to take you to our article page. We have a lot of articles here. You're actually welcome to browse through them. A lot of them are written by our advisors. I didn't write that. So some of them are written by me, and you'll see information at the end of the article. You see who the author is. I'll write this one, for example, using desktop flight simulator to develop flying skills and reduce costs. So if you go through here, there's some solid advice from me personally on how to save money and save time on your flight training by using Microsoft Flight Simulator for advanced stages of flight training, which involve normally instrument rating. So, there's a lot of information here. And of course, if you guys have personal sort of questions, we always welcome you to schedule an appointment with us so we can consult you directly. It's always free. We provide the services for free. We'll be able to connect with you and discuss exactly what is your background, what are you trying to achieve, and what program would be best for you and how to use it in order to achieve your goals. All right. Well, folks, this is pretty much the end of this short presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. So I can see here, there's a small questions here. Can Aerocadet International provide a visa sponsorship and sponsor program from 0 to ATPL? From Noreen. Yes, we provide all the visa sponsorship. In fact, you cannot get a visa to US or Canada without a special letter. And the letter is called LOA in Canada and I-20 in the United States. So we always provide, through our FTPs, we provide those letters to all the students. So you can apply for either US F1 visa or the Canadian student permit. How does the visa process work with Emirates and Dubai? Very simply. Emirates is owned by Emirates. Okay, it's a government-owned airline, and it's integrated with the Emirati government. Okay, so whatever Emirates wants as an airline will be provided by the Emirati government. So if you need a visa for as long as you want to work, they will provide a visa for you. The license conversion will be done the same way. When you finish your training and you get a type rating, which is always free, so the type rating is offered for free by Emirates, your check ride will also be your check ride for the license. You get Emirati license at the end of a check ride. Okay, and so obviously your visa will be extending. Ultimately, it will be extended by the Emirati government with a petition of the Emirates Airlines. And because they work together, they integrated, there's no contradiction. Whatever they want, they get. Will placement assistance be provided? Yes, we'll provide placement assistance. It's one of our guarantees. The placement assistance will be in form of reference and recommendation letters. Okay, this is actually required by most airlines. The recommendation letters will be from us. We work here as airline pilots, as consultants, as flight instructors and stuff like that. It will be provided by the flight instructors. And of course, we'll make sure you have all the tools and equipment in order to get through the initial interview with those airlines. Okay, so as I said, we have sections that will basically prepare you for the interview process to get through the interview process. Which high school is best for international students in the US? Well, we don't deal with high schools. We deal with flight training. So I'm not sure what you mean by high school. Whatever high school you go to is fine. We just want to make sure you have a secondary education. And by the way, Emirates does not require a degree. So if you're thinking, do I need a degree to go to Emirates? You don't need a degree to go to Emirates. They just want you to have the licenses, the experience, the safety record, so you haven't been into any accidents. They want to make sure you pass a background check, so you haven't been arrested or you haven't been a criminal or anything like that. But the degree is not required. They don't emphasize degree. It's not a requirement. They do want you to have secondary education. So if you're, for example, from India, which is a lot of our students, we normally tell them they have to have A levels with, for example, science stream. But science stream is also not required. So it's you just have to have secondary education equivalent. What type of license required for Caribbean internship? You have to have ATPL. You have to finish your internship in Canada or United States and have a ATPL with 1,500 hours. A language test. Yes, we require IELTS academic with a score of 6.0 or higher. Okay, and that's because all our visas here are academic visas. It's F1 academic visa, which allows you to work in the United States, not the M1 visa, which is vacational visa, which does not allow you to work in the United States. And the same thing with Canadian admission. So yes, you have to take an English test. A pathway for somebody who has a CPL. Absolutely. We actually have a career development program in the United States. We had them as well in Canada, but we had to stop them a month ago. Why? Because Canada now has, from the 1st of March, Canada has a limit on the amount of students that can become students in Canada. And it's limited to 355,000, something like that a year. So still a lot of students. And so we had a career development program in Canada, which we would take you with CPL, and you'd have to get flight instructor license. So it takes about a year or so to get flight instructor licenses, and then you can work for about a year, and then you can apply for PR. Again, we had to stop it because we don't know how many students will be able to. So we have to give priority to students who start from 0 PPL level. But there's a program in Canada called Pathway to the program in the United States called Pathway to ATP. Again, you can access it by going to our website, aerocadet.com, click on programs, and click on career development section. And that program is working. So you can get through that pathway. Again, it will not get you jet time. So you'll have to figure out how to get jet time, once again. But it will get you a full unrestricted ATPL with 1,500 hours. So there's certain ways to get jet time. You can go to airlines that don't require jet time. For example, Cathay Pacific does not require jet time, right? Why? Because they recruit pilots as second officers, not first officers, second officers. You don't need jet time for Cathay Pacific. You just need a full unrestricted ATPL. So there's many options you can use without jet time. Entrance test for the programs. For our programs, we don't have an entrance test unless you're financing. So if you're looking to finance and you're looking to apply for our finance petition package, you have to take 2 pilot aptitude tests. Okay, they're pretty easy. You take them online, and we maybe have like 5% that fail them, but 95% pass them without a problem. So yes, there are 2 entrance tests, but only if you need to finance. So if you're applying for financing, and you need a financing petition from us called SLAS package, and you can learn about it by going to our website, aerocadet.com, click on financing. You'll see all the information about it right there. We cannot recommend you to a bank unless we know that you're going to most likely comply with the curriculum, with the flight training curriculum. And for that, we need to take 2 pilot aptitude tests and go through interview process we have to check your English level. Okay, that's all you need. If you don't look for financing, you're self-sponsoring, we only need IELTS academic. That's it. And that's not a test you take with us. It's a test you take with IELTS system. What are the prospects, plausible pathway for someone with a valid ICAO or ATPL and Class 1 medical, but no currency? Well, we don't deal with if you already have ATPL, we can't really help you at all because we're a flight training facility. So, if you already have ATPL, you have to make sure that most of the time, if you have ATPL, and I'm talking about not restricted ATPL, because some of the ICAO ATPLs like EASA ATPL Frozen is not ATPL, it's just a CPL, right? It just has a name of ATPL, but if you have less than 1,500 hours, it's not a full ATPL. So you'll probably need to sort of discuss your options with prospective employers and build your flight time to the point that you meet the requirements for Emirates. Also, I don't know where you're from. If you're like if you could, let's say you're from India and you have ATPL, right? You can just apply for employment with Indigo. Yes, you'll have to pay for the type rating there. They're required to pay about $25,000 for type rating. But once you're finished, you'll be able to get that jet time on Airbus, for example. And once you get to 2,000 hours, you might be able to apply for employment with Emirates. So it depends where you're from. Brief about SLAS package. Look, if you just go to aerocadet.com here, let's go to aerocadet.com and go to financing. So we got a big section called financing, and click on financing options, student loans, and flight internship. Right here you have basically finance. How do you finance, right? Bank statements, you need bank loan sanction letter, stuff like that. So if you click on that bank loan sanction letter, you need to apply for financing. We provide you a special SLAS petition package, which basically states that it has certain components. It has Aerocadet official program acceptance letter. You went through interview process, you took the exams, and we consider you a great candidate for this program. We think you will comply with curriculum, and you think that you'll comply with the budget, right? Because that's what bank wants to know. Bank wants to know, is budget going to be enough that's quoted in the program, or is this person going to need like 50% more funding? Well, no, we think that it's going to be enough. Global Air BVI conditional employment offer, that's advanced internship, and you'll have conditional guaranteed offer of employment with this company. And that's something that banks definitely want to see. They want to make sure that you'll be able to pay back the money. So the offer of employment is preliminary offer of employment is very important. You have flight training internship contract, and this contract will have all the sort of internship integration and stuff like that. So it's very important for them to have this contract. They have the cost of training, the duration of training, the payment schedule, and everything else. Riker Aerospace welcome letter. We normally use it as a cover for the contract. And electronic status verification student ID. It's a QR code. You can scan it, and it shows your valid student ID online. So, if you want more information, just go to aerocadet.com. Again, just click financing options, click on that, and just read through that material. We published a lot of material here. I want to make sure that you guys are very familiar with this. If you want to do that, just go ahead and click on that, click an application form, fill out this form, and we'll contact you in a couple of days with the exam and the interview. Okay. Does TOEFL score work? Yes, it does. So you go to admissions, English requirements, click on English requirements right here. TOEFL, look at that, right? You get equivalency here between TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS, and stuff like that. If you score that, you're good to go. Can we go without IELTS? You can go without IELTS, but you have to have an English test, right? Because again, we issue academic visas which allow you to work in the U.S. or Canada, for that matter. And that's the most important part. You have to integrate your flight training with internship. Otherwise, your license will end up being CPL with 250 hours, and then no job after that. You're going to end up sitting at home, working at McDonald's. I don't know where you're going to do, but a CPL with 250 hours is normally not enough to get a job. Okay, you have to have guaranteed employment or internship integrated with flight training. And this is why a lot of students that join us call us after they get CPL 250 hours to try to get a job for a year, no job. And they're very, very upset and desperate. And after not flying for a year, they lost a lot of their skill. it's a terrible situation. So do not go into flight training and do your CPL 250 hours and then expect to get a job after that. It's not a good plan. Your plan should be, there should be a guaranteed internship, guaranteed employment after that. Everything should be integrated. If it's not integrated, you're putting yourself in danger of losing all that money you just spent for flight training and not getting a job. That's bad. Political conditions between India and Canada. Okay, that I understand the political conditions, but they don't affect right now the visas. Yeah, we had a lot of students from India that studied in Canada. I literally just yesterday reviewed a few emails where people applied for visas and got successful approval. So the political condition is one thing, but also Canadians are people, and they realize that students from other countries are also people, and they want to study, and the political situation should not affect their ability to study in Canada. So and also don't forget, when you study in Canada, you inject a lot of money in Canadian economy. Okay, so do they want the money? Yes, they do. The airline I'm working for, I work for a major airline in the United States. The reason why we're not supposed to disclose the name of the airline is because we're not supposed to use the name of the airline for personal gain. So this was my second employment. I fly maybe 13, 15 days per month. The rest of the time I'm free. And a lot of guys like to enjoy their time and, relax on the beach. I don't like this. I like to do something else. So that's why I'm also a part-time consultant here with Aerocadet. But we're not supposed to use the name of the airline for personal gain. Okay, on the side in addition. So, but I do work for a major airline. If you want to check out my LinkedIn ID, that's fine. I'm an Airbus captain. I'm also check airman. I train other students, other pilots on the Airbus A320, 321 family. And I also test other captains to ensure that their proficiency is up to our standards. So it's called check airman. If I join after getting my US CPL, after how much time will I be able to start earning? Okay, so if you're talking about our career development program, which is located right here, so go here and then career development program section right here, pathway to FAA TPL. If you click on that, the flight training duration is 6 months, and after 6 months, you can start working as a flight instructor. So it takes about 6 to 8 months, normally 6 months to get a flight instructor license, which is CFI, CFII, and MEI. So multi-engine instructor, single engine instrument, multi-engine instrument, and just single engine basic. Okay, so you get 3 ratings. TOEFL, how much score for international students? Again, just go to admissions, English requirements, click on that. And so you got TOEFL paper. So TOEFL has, there's like 3 different TOEFLs, right? You got TOEFL paper, TOEFL CBT, and TOEFL IBT, right? And so right here is the scores that you need to achieve in those different TOEFL papers, okay? All right, guys. I hope it looks like I've answered most of the questions. If you have more questions, I always recommend everybody, please go to Academy. Please go to articles and reviews. Please read our blogs here. Some blogs here are really important. Some are not that important, like top benefits of rolling into pilot training program. Do you need to know that? You probably realize what the benefits are. I didn't write that. It was written by another consultant. He's a great guy, but those things are kind of like they're not that important. 10 most popular states for flight training in the U.S. Okay, you can read that, for example. But this is really important stuff here. Like for instance, how to finance aviation training, right? If you click on that, we try to discuss different financing options. What exactly to do? Can you apply for a scholarship in the United States? These are programs that they allow scholarships. Like Aerocadet has a scholarship for international students. We normally give up to $15,000 per year, so it's $5,000 per student, and that's additional performance-based scholarship. There's other companies, not just us, like Aero Club of New England, for example, has up to 16,000. Things like that. So there's important information here for those looking for financing. I would say that 60% of applicants look for financing, and so we want to make sure there's a lot of information for you. There's some companies in Canada, for example, so there's a lot of useful information. Now, if you apply for one of those scholarships, are you going to get your whole flight training paid for? No, no. Each one of the scholarships will probably give you $5,000, $6,000. But if you apply for like a whole bunch of them and get, I don't know, maybe 5 approved, that's $25,000, right? That's a lot. And then you can use that seed money to apply for financing and say, I already have $25,000 approved by the scholarship. I'm a great student. Can I get the rest as in the student loan? And we'll provide you the SLAS package, which is your which is your petition to get those loans. So this is how you obtain. It's a lot of work. It'll take maybe a year, maybe a year and a half to get financing if you don't have money for flight training. But there's a lot of advice here on how to do that, and it's based on experience of our students. Okay, we don't just make things up. It's based on the actual real life experience. Okay, so I recommend just to go through all this material. United States versus Canada flight training differences. Go through that. It's important information here as well. Again, so great talking to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this session. If you want to come back to it, we're going to record. It's been recorded, so we're going to publish it on our website, and we'll send the link to publication so everybody can view that. If you have more questions, this isn't the end of consulting. You can always go to our website, aerocadet.com. So just go to aerocadet.com right here, okay, and then click on right at the bottom here. Okay, in the right corner, you have schedule a call. Okay, so you can click schedule a call. All right, and that's going to take it to this section here, and you can choose, admission guidance. It's free. We don't charge anything for that, and we'll be able to basically advise you. Don't choose the Zoom admission interview. It's for already enrolled students. If you're already enrolled, you're submitted documents. We normally conduct face-to-face interview just to make sure that all your questions are answered and stuff like that. Don't choose that. For initial consultation, choose any of those guys, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, guys. I enjoyed talking to you. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to speaking to you privately, one-on-one through the consultation call. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.